everyone, and if you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm DarkHour717, and with this past weekend CitizenCon, I wanted to forgo the usual weekly news update to bring you CitizenCon in a nutshell. This is where I'll go over and briefly cover all that was passed at CitizenCon. Before we get started though, if you enjoy these videos, hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps me out and I greatly appreciate it. And to all of you who have already subscribed, I say thank you. Stick around till the end of the video to find out how you can get entered in for a chance to win the new Crusader Spirit E1 that was just announced at CitizenCon. CitizenCon, of course, is the yearly convention where Chris Roberts and the leading members of CIG provide an array of updates in regards to Star Citizen. This year, although in a shortened digital format, definitely did not disappoint. Providing looks into the future of Star Citizen as well as Squadron 42, much of the information given was well received, with a small amount of information causing players to hit up Spectrum with a flood of questions and concerns. The most important thing to remember is that though the focus is 4.0 for this year's CitizenCon, all of these items are not for the initial 4.0 release, but items being worked on for the entirety of the 4.0 time span. So 4.0, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, so on and so forth. In opening the show, we saw a montage of what the developers and team members at CIG feel about the players and the community. This, of course, was a very touching tribute, showing the appreciation that the team has for those of us that play Star Citizen. After this, we hear from Chris Roberts providing a background of what the goal of Star Citizen is and the basis of his dream of what it could be. Going through a brief history and timeline of Star Citizen, he mentions the different milestones reached, including current stats of playtime averages, as well as the success that has come from the community making Star Citizen possible. He moves through and introduces the new soundstage modeled after the Connie Phoenix, where we find Jared behind the bar making drinks. The set actually looks amazing though, and I really want the real life bobblehead that's on his desk. From here we start getting into the panels, and the first is a look at the Pyro System, with a look at 6 different locations. Maximilian Kylish, who is a senior environment artist, takes us on a tour of the newest system that will be coming to the verse, showing shots of Pyro 1, 2, 3, 4, 5C, and of course Pyro 6. We get visuals of the in-engine planet. Though some polish pass needs to still be done, the environments look absolutely stunning. Some were already even set up with volumetric clouds, and getting down to the surface areas, it really blew my mind as the colors of the environments were much different than I anticipated. We got to see an example of the fauna that will be present in the areas, as well as different rock formations. The areas that we had a chance to see ranged from a peaceful and tranquil plains type environment with bright yellow grasses flowing in the wind to barren rocky areas that seemed desolate, as well as aggressive, hostile looking environments as well. We also saw areas that had bodies of water, and Pyro appears to be spanning the full range of types of environments. The shots reminded me of postcard style shots, with the lighting just adding to the feel of the location. One of the best was the scenery around Pyro 3 with the yellow color of the grass, which is actually mostly moss and fields. Really unbelievable was seeing Pyro 5C with the scar across the face of the planet. Unlike anything that we've seen in Stanton, this planet looks as if it's been battle worn. The biomes that we see really get me excited for the Pyro System to get in game, to be able to go explore all these areas. And then we make our way into the panel, which is design briefs, investigations. This is where we learn of the new missions, coming with a more cerebral approach of needing to find and decipher clues or puzzles to unravel the mystery that is assigned to you. This is a mission style that we somewhat have in the game now with the Gundo Station PI Wanted personal mission, but where in that mission you make your way through the derelict station to find communications to solve who is to blame for the destruction in an attempt to clear Darnell's name. These seem to take that to another level, one which appears to take you to several locations with more than just reading communications and listening to audio recordings. You'll now need to find clues and determine the next step to take. Much like the PI Wanted mission, you'll have the ability to submit your findings at any point, but this could result in an unwanted outcome for the findings. How in depth these will actually get and the amount of time and distance you'll need to travel is still unknown, but this really introduces another level of missions to take on that is not so much based in physical overtaking of an area or NPCs, but more heavily focused on deductive reasoning and deciphering what you see around you. And that's very exciting to really be more in a role of a sleuth is a great gameplay loop. After learning about these new missions, we get a look at the new underground facilities. Now these, in comparison to what we have now, are unreal, the scale in which they are taking them. These new locations are going to a whole new level, literally several levels below ground to be exact. With these facilities having different functions and including hangars and pads, they will also include executive areas as well before proceeding deep into the ground with several levels of exploration available. Also, with wanting to create multiple access points to make entry into them, this will change the underground facilities for the better. The new areas will also include large processing or industrial areas to the new facilities, and they look absolutely unbelievable and on a whole new scale. The go-through also touches on the transition from area to area through the facility and how they were designed to flow naturally. A lot of thought has definitely gone into the player experience within these areas during the design phase. After the bunkers, we hear from Yogi Klatt and others from the vehicle feature team in regard to the future of the flight model and how speed will affect and drive the basis of flight in the future. Speed, of course, is a major issue in the combat experience. As we go through the upcoming changes of the flight system, we see that the need to define ship roles within the game needs to be done to really increase the variety to the player. In trying to define the roles, they really lean to combat to start, as this allows a large differentiation between the combat archetype, and each style ship has its specialty, whether it be a bomber, a light fighter, a medium fighter, or a large fighter. With the goal of creating the need to use the right ship for the right situation, speed right now is the biggest hurdle to achieve their overall goal. While the jousting is a style they are hoping to avoid, they are trying to bring the combat in closer together as an overall goal. And this is where we learn of Master Mode, where they separate the long-range travel from the combat flight. This would be globally applied through the Standard Control Mode, or what they call SCM, and Quantum Control Mode, or QCM. SCM mode will be where you work and perform combat. Speeds will be lower depending on the ship. You'll be able to slightly boost beyond it, but will generally be somewhere between 200 and 300 meters per second. But the boost will only give a small degree of increase. There will overall be a cap. In the SCM mode, the quantum engine will not be available, and this will come in when you activate QCM mode, where you will get pre-quantum speeds upwards of 1300 meters per second or more for whatever ship that you're actually in. And you will be able to boost in a straight line for longer ranges and even launch quantum for interplanetary travel. This will be achieved through the quantum bubble. When you go into quantum mode, your capacitor will disengage and shut down your weapons and your shields. So the need in an attack scenario to decide whether you're going to stay in SCM mode and fight or activate quantum mode and escape is a very key portion of this. Currently, this mode is complete and being tested daily in the studio, and tweaks are still being made. And through their testing, they've found that it produces a much richer experience for the player. This in turn has made the need to stay closer to larger ships like the Hammerhead or Carrack, meaning that turrets will be much more of a threat to a light fighter like the Gladius. It is interesting, and I can see this definitely making a huge difference in the combat experience. Overall, this seems to be a positive change, and one that has even received positive feedback from people like Avenger 1. I will be anxiously awaiting the ability to see how this plays out. Though ready in the studio, it will still be a little time before we see it ready for the PU. After the flight model change, we get to see a sneak peek at the redesign of Lorville. Being the oldest city in Star Citizen, currently they are revisiting it with new designs, increasing the overall size and footprint of the city at the center of Stanton. We do get to see the changes to Lorville, and they absolutely look spectacular. After a brief description of the process of building a city, as well as looking at the concept art of what the look is that they were going for, we can see why the citizens of Lorville really need to wear bags on their heads. With concept art showing more taller buildings and larger industrial areas, the look remains true to Lorville. And with it now in white box, we see in-engine shots of what they are building, and it looks stunning to say the least. And they address the lessening of the no-fly zones and more flyable areas, in which we already know the community will find every way possible to turn these into viable racing areas. I can't wait to take an M50 or a Razor down between the buildings and press my luck. Resource management systems is the next thing we hear about, and this is going to be the one major hurdle for larger capital ships. This will be the mechanic that will change everything as far as gameplay with the need to manage your ship and the environments within it. This means that going forward, you'll need people that will mitigate issues throughout the ship. Fuses will be able to be blown or stolen, fires can break out on a ship, components can break and malfunction, and these will all need to be addressed by someone. Providing abilities to have a designated role for each person on a ship will then take these responsibilities and assign it to the crew versus today's having everybody stand around except for the pilot and turret gunners. With roles like gunner, navigator, engineer, all possible and more, the pilot will need to rely on others to keep the ship afloat. Have a fire in a space, you need to send the engineer to vent the room to space to deplete the oxygen. As they really enjoyed showing this, you can do to other players standing in a room as well. A system fails and someone can troubleshoot the system to see where the failure is and replace a fuse or repair a component to get it back up and running. This is a system that will absolutely up the realism to 10 and also provide an enriching and team-based experience for those flying together. The overall goal is all of Star Citizen, including bunkers, stations, and cities, will all operate on the resource management system. This will also help bring in the ability to not just destroy targets, but disable them to bring in additional gameplay of looting, salvaging, or even stealing contents of ships and selling it for yourself. Also, this will operate the life support, gravity, power resources, item maintenance, access control, and relay handling of all the ships. And remember, as CIG has stated, this really is the biggest hurdle to making ships like the Idris feasible in-game. In the long run, this really will bring in true multi-crew operation. And finally, we get to the most popular panel, the ship panel. And this starts with a new concept ship being announced, the Crusader Spirit, which is a trio of two-seater ships from Crusader. Coming in the A1, C1, and E1, we see a bomber, a cargo, and an executive version of this newest ship. Made to really compete with something along the lines of a Cutlass Black, the cargo will have 48 SCU of cargo space, while the A1 will carry 10 size 5 bombs, and the E1 will carry 6 VIP executives in a luxury atmosphere. With a sharp angular design, it definitely screams Crusader. I will do a more in-depth look at these new ships and their differences, but it is in concept and available for pledging at this time. After the Spirit, we get an update on the Corsair and John Cruz thing that would be available in the verse at IAE, which is exciting. The looks inside and out of the Corsair makes me even more excited to get this in game. This is one ship that I've been waiting a long time for. With looks inside the interior, we see the Corsair is also going to have an elevator that leads to the top outer area of the ship, and this thing is loaded for bear. Even as an exploration ship, the Corsair will be no slouch in defense. Through the presentation, they provide us with a full walkthrough of the interior and look at the pilot, co-pilot configuration, through the sleeping quarters all the way back to the cargo bay, and how an Ursa even fits inside. If you have one of these and have not seen this, I recommend you check it out. It even has a toilet. This then takes us into the straight-to-drivable, plucky little STV. The newest Great Cat built off the PTV, enlarging it and making it into a sport terrain vehicle. Very reminiscent of a Jeep Wrangler, this buggy is a blast, and along with this, we also get a look at another future version of the PTV with the UTV. It's almost a Coleman or Gator style buggy. After that, we also see the redesign of the original PTV, which both of these look absolutely great. The STV is durable and rugged and can actually take a lot of punishment for sure. Perfect little bunker raider to drive in from out of turret range. It's a great addition to have in the verse. This is drivable now and available on the Pledge store, and I will do a video looking at it a little bit more in depth. After this, we do get treated to a montage of in-engine shots of different locations throughout Pyro, including the Rune Station and other areas, and this leads up to a sit-down with Chris Roberts and Richard Trier, who give an in-depth update on Squadron 42 and its systems. And these will actually eventually move over to the PU as well. First, we get to take a look at the first-person radar and player interaction system, and these show how it can work in-game through Squadron 42 clips. We see them entering a room, and a scan will indicate things the player can interact with, and a system that allows interactions without needing to use a separate interact mode. We then see the FPS radar and the ability to use it to detect enemies nearby, but also run the risk of being detected ourselves. Also, you will be able to detect a terminal or a vent and other environmental features. This then takes us to the ledges and ladders and the ability to do more than what we currently have in game. The ability to jump and grab and climb up is a much welcome feature with all these new ways to do it. Along with that, the ability to vault off of a ladder to a ledge will lead to many new ways to climb and explore new areas. And the level of challenge in going through a space versus the just climb straight up option that we have now. This is a much welcome addition for traversing the areas. And after that, we also get a look at the 0G push-pull and the changes to EVA mechanics. Having redesigned EVA from the ground up, it's a new mechanic. This will introduce a more stable platform and works in a truly decoupled manner. EVA will be suit specific and not every suit will be EVA equipped, which if it's not, you'll still be able to utilize 0G push-pull. This will also be able to introduce new gameplay into the PU. This will eventually introduce the concept of what you wear is actually going to matter. This has been a goal for a while for CIG to make it reasonable and necessary to change outfits based on your environment and activities. Very much like not wearing big, heavy, large-sized backpacks when flying because you just won't fit in the seat. Wearing normal clothes when in cities and overall getting away from being able to just run around in heavy armor 24/7. The EVA looks really good and the push-pull will be available on any surface you are close enough to by pulling yourself along a surface with your hands towards your destination. And with what they showed, it really looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. We also got a brief look at a GravLab Spock-like coffin cargo container. Then we saw an example of a new HUD system designed within the ship that cleans up the view and provides more visible area while utilizing the ship's MFDs to show the information needed. After this, we get Chris Roberts apologizing for the brain-dead AI in the PU, but goes into what they are doing on the Squadron side to improve them and make them more realistic. The goal is to get it set up and running smoothly as a single-player feature, and once all that works, adapt it from the multiplayer side. They did show some of what they are working on, and the way that the AI is working, it seems to be a much better system with logical actions. It is a completely systemic system and not scripted or predetermined routes that they are taking. They also show a combat example with assigned roles in which they react based on environment and situation. This then brings us into the most controversial and likely the most posted item in Spectrum: skills. Based on the fact that the more you perform an action, the more benefits you should get from it. This will allow for growth as a character and build up things like endurance. And overall, the levels will increase organically as you play, introducing maybe 1 to 2% difference in improvement. As this is still not in development, I do take it with a grain of salt. This does raise a lot of voices on Spectrum, as the original idea of Star Citizen stated that a skills improvement system would not be implemented. And me personally, I find that this may be a bit premature, because based on the description, this will introduce a very small amount of change, and one that would not make the difference between being able to play and complete objectives or not complete objectives. It really seems to be a much more passive style system, and based on the description, it would not require the use or assignment of skill or attribute points, but just improvements organically to your character as you repeat normal common actions as you play. After this, we saw the example of the Mobi-Glass, and the new Mobi-Glass looks great. Even though this was a military version that we did see, it was much cleaner, sharper, and much more user-friendly in my opinion. And they briefly go into what information they really want to bring to the Mobi-Glass beyond what we even have now, such as external environments outside of the ship, as well as many other things. And finally, after that, we got an introduction to the new community hub from Xylo, and that concluded CitizenCon. Overall, it was a great CitizenCon with a lot of useful information, and the future really seems bright and promising for Star Citizen as we get closer to 4.0. Let me know what you think though. What were some of the highlights for you? What things may or may not worry you about what we heard? I would definitely love to hear your thoughts. Just leave me a comment, and remember, you can get entered in to win one of the new Crusader Spirit E1 executive ships. All you gotta do is subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment on any video to be entered. The winner will be drawn on November 1st, and if you would like to help support the channel, check out the merch store or hit the join button above for a membership starting at 99 cents per month. Feel free to stop in on stream here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursdays, or catch us at the same time on Twitch every Tuesday and Sunday. But again, I want to thank you for checking out the CitizenCon recap, and I hope you're all safe out there, and we will catch you in the verse.